The Hook, the market of chains. The alien marketplace was alive with noise, colors, and smells that made the air heavy. Traders shouted from stalls, selling rare metals, strange fruits, and weapons from distant systems. But hidden between the rows of shining goods stood a darker corner, a place where living beings were sold like items. Cages lined the path, each one holding a frightened creature. Shackles clanged whenever one of them moved. The crowd barely looked at them. To most, they were nothing more than tools or slaves. A human walked slowly through the bazaar. His clothes were plain, his steps calm, but his eyes were sharp. He was alone, without friends or crew, and many whispered that humans rarely came here. He ignored the stares. Something in his gaze searched deeper, as if he was looking for something only he could see. Then he stopped. At the end of the slave row, under the shade of a torn banner, a girl sat chained to the ground. She was small, thin, and her head was covered with a rough sack. Rusted chains wrapped around her wrists and ankles, their weight keeping her bent low. Dust covered her skin, and the traders had pushed her aside, as if she was not worth the effort. A sign hung from her neck with shaky letters, 3 credits. Laughter echoed nearby. A group of alien buyers pointed at her. 3 credits, even that is too much for trash, one mocked. She cannot speak, she cannot fight, she cannot serve. Worthless, another spat. But the human did not laugh. He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. She flinched at the sound of his boots, her body trembling under the sack. The trader noticed him and smirked. Ah, human. Looking for something cheap? Here is a broken one for only 3 credits. A meal costs more than this waste of space. The crowd chuckled again. They expected the human to walk away, just as everyone else had. No one had shown interest in her for weeks. She was considered cursed, dangerous, or simply useless. But instead, the human crouched down. His hand hovered near her chains, not touching, but close enough for her to feel the warmth. She froze, waiting for the strike that never came. Slowly, he spoke, his voice steady, calm, without cruelty. You don't belong here. The girl's breathing quickened under the sack. No one had ever spoken to her like that. The words were not commands, not insults, they were almost kind. The trader rolled his eyes. If you want her, pay the credits, but don't blame me when she brings you nothing but trouble. The human reached into his pocket. A soft jingle of coins broke through the noise of the market. 3 credits. Small, almost meaningless in a galaxy where warships cost billions, and life was often bought and sold for power. He placed the coins on the trader's hand. Gasps rose from the crowd. Is he mad? 3 credits wasted on dirt? A human fool, nothing more. The trader laughed and tossed him a key. She's yours. Don't say I didn't warn you. The human caught the key, stood up, and unlocked the chains. The iron links fell with a heavy thud against the ground. For the first time, the girl moved without weight pulling her down, her thin arms wrapped around her knees, her body shivering as she waited for pain. But instead of hitting her, the human knelt again and gently lifted the sack from her head. The sunlight touched her face. Her eyes were wide, glowing faintly with an alien light but filled with fear. Dust streaked her cheeks, her lips cracked from thirst, yet her gaze locked on his. She did not understand why he had freed her. The human met her stare. His expression was firm, but his voice carried something different, something rare in a place built on cruelty. You're safe now. The marketplace fell silent for a moment. Even the laughter faded. The crowd could not understand what they were seeing. A human had spent his credits, not on weapons, not on goods, but on a girl they thought was worthless. As he helped her to her feet, she stumbled, unused to walking free. He held her steady without hesitation. Around them, whispers grew louder. He doesn't know what he's done. She will bring him ruin. No one saves the cursed. But the human ignored them. He walked forward with the girl at his side, her chains left behind in the dirt. Every step carried a weight of choice, a risk no one else would dare take. And though he did not know her story, he felt something stir deep inside. A promise that his life, and perhaps the galaxy itself, was about to change. The bazaar swallowed them in its noise once again, but the watchers would not forget. Rumors would spread like fire that a lonely human had paid 3 credits to free the alien girl in chains. None could guess what this act of kindness would lead to, or how it would shake the stars themselves. The rescue, chains broken, future unknown. The bazaar's noise faded behind them as the human led the alien girl away. The chains no longer dragged against the ground, yet she walked as if they were still there. Every step was heavy, her shoulders bent, her eyes darting nervously. Freedom felt unreal, like a dream that could shatter at any moment. The crowd's whispers followed them. Some laughed, some mocked, but others watched in silence, eyes that carried greed and calculation. A human buying a slave for 3 credits was strange, but a human buying that slave was dangerous. The girl kept glancing back, expecting to be dragged away, expecting the cruel laughter of the traders to call her back to the chains. But no one stopped them. She finally spoke, her voice so soft it was almost lost in the busy streets. "Why?" The human looked at her. She was trembling, not from cold, but from fear that came from years of being treated as less than nothing. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he guided her through the maze of stalls, away from curious eyes. When they reached the edge of the marketplace where the noise dulled into the hum of distant engines, he stopped. "I don't know why," he said finally, his voice steady, "but I couldn't leave you there." The girl stared at him, confused. To her, kindness was a myth. In her world, people wanted something in return: power, wealth, control. No one gave without taking more. And yet, here was a stranger who had given her freedom for the price of a meal. Her thin fingers gripped her wrist, rubbing the raw skin where shackles had cut deep. She wanted to believe him, but her heart warned her not to trust. Still, something in his eyes made her follow when he gestured toward the docks. They reached his ship, a vessel old but strong, scarred by battles and patched with care. Its metal hull reflected the pale light of the twin suns. The girl hesitated at the foot of the ramp. The ship looked like another prison, another cage, and her legs froze. The human noticed. He didn't force her. Instead, he stepped back and extended his hand. "You're free," he said. "You can stay, or you can walk away. No one will stop you." She blinked. No one had ever given her a choice before. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "If I go, they will find me. The hunters always find me." His brow tightened. Hunters. That word carried danger. But he kept his voice calm. "Then you stay, and I'll deal with whoever comes." Her breath caught. For the first time, someone had spoken as if her life mattered. Slowly, carefully, she stepped onto the ramp. The metal rang under her bare feet, and with each step she moved away from the memory of chains. Inside, the ship was dim and quiet, filled with the hum of engines. He guided her to a small cabin and set down a blanket. "Rest here. You'll be safe." But as she sat, the fear did not leave her. Instead, tears slid down her face. She buried her head in her hands and whispered, "You don't understand. They will come. They will never let me live." The human crouched beside her. "Then let them come," he said. His tone was not boastful, not reckless. It was simple, steady, like an unshakable wall. She looked at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. Humans were said to be reckless, fragile, weak compared to galactic powers. Yet in his voice, she heard something else. A strength that was not in muscle or weapons, but in resolve. That night, the girl could not sleep. She sat by the small window, staring at the stars, her body trembling with every memory. Her mind replayed the faces of those who had hurt her, those who had destroyed her people. She whispered prayers in a language older than the stars, hoping the hunters would never find her here. But the galaxy is never kind to the lost. Far beyond the human ship in the cold darkness of space, signals moved. Traders who had laughed earlier now sent quiet messages. Mercenaries listened, And in the shadows, those hunters she feared most marked the human's ship on their trackers. Inside the cabin, the girl's heart suddenly froze. She felt it, like a shadow crawling across her soul. The hunters had noticed. The human entered the room carrying food. He saw her pale face and asked, "What's wrong?" She looked at him, fear choking her words. Then she whispered, "They know." Silence fell. The human didn't ask who they were. He didn't demand answers she couldn't give. Instead, he placed the tray down, sat beside her, and said only one thing. "Then I'll be ready." The engines of the ship rumbled softly, unaware that danger was closing in. But in that small room, under the weak glow of a lamp, a bond began to form. Between a human who refused to walk away and an alien girl who had never known freedom until now. Neither of them could see what was coming, but both felt it in the air. The chains were broken, yet the true battle was only beginning. The bond, a home among stars. The ship drifted into the quiet void, leaving the noisy bazaar far behind. The engines hummed softly, steady and calm, like a heartbeat inside the cold emptiness of space. To most, this was just another journey between stars. But for the alien girl, every second was strange, frightening yet new. For the first time in years, she was not in chains. She sat in the small cabin, staring at the blanket he had given her. The fabric felt rough, but it was hers. She touched it again and again as if afraid it would vanish. She remembered the taste of dust in the slave market, the sound of laughter, the weight of chains biting into her skin. And now, silence. The human returned carrying water and food. She looked at him carefully, expecting tricks, expecting cruelty hidden behind kindness. But he only placed the tray near her and stepped back. "You need strength," he said simply. She hesitated, then picked up the cup. Her hands shook so badly the water almost spilled. He didn't move closer, didn't rush her. He only waited. She drank slowly, her body trembling with each sip. Then for the first time she whispered something in his language. "Thank you." The words felt broken on her tongue, but they were honest. The human nodded. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened. "Rest. Tomorrow you'll feel stronger." That night she lay awake, listening to the hum of the ship. Every sound frightened her at first, the hiss of the air vents, the faint creak of the hull, but slowly, her breathing steadied. For once no guard shouted at her, no whip cracked, no chains pulled. She closed her eyes, uncertain if this was reality or a fragile dream. Days passed. The girl began to move around the ship. At first, she walked barefoot and silent, always watching the door, always ready to run. But little by little, she learned. The human showed her simple tasks, how to prepare food, how to operate the lights, how to read the glowing buttons on the console. Her hands, once weak and trembling, grew steadier. Suspense grew in her heart. She wanted to ask why he had chosen her, why he risked so much, but fear always silenced her tongue. She thought, perhaps he will sell me again. Perhaps he only waits for the right buyer. Yet every day when she woke, he was still there. No chains, no orders, just quiet, steady presence. One evening she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper, "Why did you free me?" He looked at her across the table, his face unreadable. For a long time he said nothing. Then slowly he answered, "Because no one else would." Her chest tightened. Those words carried a weight greater than any chain. She turned away, her eyes burning with tears she had not allowed herself to shed for years. As trust grew, so did the shadows. She began to tell him pieces of her past, how her people once lived free among the stars, how they were hunted, captured, destroyed because others feared their gifts. She did not explain everything. Some truths were too dangerous, but her broken words painted enough. She was not a worthless slave, She was the last spark of a people the galaxy had tried to erase. The human listened in silence. He asked no foolish questions, offered no empty promises. But in his eyes she saw something she had never seen before. Belief. Still, danger crept closer. Signals spread across the outer systems. Mercenaries whispered of a human ship carrying a girl with glowing eyes. Bounty hunters sharpened their blades. Governments feared rumors that one survivor still lived. One night, as the human adjusted the ship's course, alarms blinked faintly on the console. A shadow had entered the system. A vessel followed them, silent, patient, waiting. The girl felt it before the sensors confirmed. Her body tensed, her breathing sharp. She clutched her arms and whispered, "They are here." The human turned to her, calm but firm. "Who?" She shook her head violently. "Hunters. They never stop. If they find me, they will kill you too. Leave me. Please, leave me." He stood, towering over her, his voice steady as steel. "No, I don't abandon family." The word struck her like lightning. Family. It was a word she had almost forgotten. To him, she was no longer a burden, no longer a slave. She was something worth fighting for. Tears rolled down her face as she shook her head. "You don't understand. They fear what I am. They destroyed my people to erase us. If they find, then they'll learn what it means to face a human," he interrupted. The ship's sensors beeped again. The hunter's vessel edged closer, its weapons not yet armed, but its presence undeniable. In the quiet hum of the cabin, the girl's fear clashed with the human's resolve. Two souls stood together, bound not by chains but by a choice to face the storm as one. And in that moment something changed. She was no longer the girl with the sack on her head. She was no longer the slave sold for 3 credits. She was someone worth saving. Someone who had found a place, however fragile, in the heart of a human who refused to let go. But beyond the stars, enemies closed in. The bond was real, but so was the danger. And soon, both would be tested in fire. The threat. Enemies in the HFY shadows. The hunter's ship lingered behind them like a shadow that refused to fade. On the human's console, the red light blinked steadily, marking the distance. It didn't fire. Not yet. It only followed, waiting for the right moment to strike. Inside the cabin, silence pressed heavy. The alien girl's hands trembled as she stared at the blinking light. Her body remembered too well what came after that red glow. Chains, fire, death, she whispered through her teeth. They never stop. Once they see me, they chase until nothing is left. The human studied the screen calmly, but his jaw tightened. "Then let them chase," he said. "But they won't take you." She shook, her head, panic in her eyes. "You don't understand. These hunters destroyed whole cities to erase my people. They burned planets. They have fleets, armies. You cannot fight them alone." The human turned to her, his gaze hard as iron. "I don't need an army. I only need one reason." The words cut through her fear, but they also terrified her. Why would he risk so much? Why would a stranger fight against monsters that even empires avoided? The ship shuddered suddenly. The hunter's vessel had locked onto their trail more closely, its engines roaring in pursuit. Outside, the black void lit with faint blue streaks, the sign of weapons charging. The girl gasped and backed against the wall. "They will fire. They always fire." The human gripped the controls. His voice was steady. "Then we run smarter than them." The ship darted left, engines screaming as it cut across an asteroid field. Huge rocks floated in silence, shadows, stretching long against the stars. The hunter's ship followed, weaving closer, patient as a predator stalking prey. Inside, the girl clutched the seat, her glowing eyes wide. She remembered the destruction of her home, the sound of skies burning, the cries of her people fading one by one. She whispered, "They fear me. That is why they kill me. If they find me alive, they will burn this galaxy again. The human glanced at her, his face unreadable. Then they'll have to get through me first. Asteroids smashed against the hull, sparks flying, but he maneuvered with skill born of countless battles. Every twist of the ship was sharp, every dodge timed perfectly. The hunter's vessel fired a pulse of blue energy, tearing a hole through an asteroid, but the human ship slid into the debris cloud, vanishing from sight. For a moment, silence. Then another alarm shrieked. The hunter had released drones. Sleek, machines with red eyes spreading like shadows through the rocks. They scanned, searching, drawing closer. The girl's chest heaved. She clutched his arm. If they capture me, they will kill you too. Please. Leave me. The human looked at her firmly. No. One word. Simple. Absolute. It silenced her. More than 1,000 promises. The drones found them. Red beams cut through the darkness, locking onto the ship. The human slammed the controls, flipping the vessel upside down as energy bolts screamed past. One drone exploded against a rock, another spun into fire, but more closed in. The girl cried out, covering her ears. To her, it was not just battle, it was the memory of extinction. She saw her people's cities fall, the hunter's ships blotting out the stars, the screams of children fading into silence. Her whole body shook, trapped in memory. The human reached over, his voice steady, breaking through her fear. Look at me. She raised her eyes, tears burning. You are not a prisoner anymore, he said. Not a slave, not cursed. You are alive. And as long as you are alive, they will never win. Something inside her shifted. The fear did not vanish, but his words planted a seed of strength. She wiped her tears and nodded weakly. The ship dove through the asteroid field, weaving so close to the rocks that sparks flew. The human's focus was unbroken. He was not just a pilot. He was a man fighting for something greater than himself. Behind them, the hunter's ship grew larger on the screen. It had grown tired of waiting. Its main weapons charged, glowing with deadly light. One shot from that cannon could turn their ship into dust. The girl's heart raced. She whispered, "We cannot escape." But the human's eyes burned with quiet fire. "We don't escape, we fight." He pressed a sequence on the console. Panels on the ship's wings opened, revealing hidden cannons. Energy surged through the systems, humming like a storm awakening. The girl gasped. "You have weapons?" He gave a faint nod. "I always prepare for war." The hunter's ship fired. A blinding beam of light cut through the darkness, striking the asteroid behind them, breaking it into fragments. The human's ship rolled sharply, returning fire. Bolts of pure energy streaked through space, slamming into the hunter's drones. Explosions lit the asteroid field like fireworks. For the first time, the hunters faltered. The human wasn't just running, he was fighting back. The girl stared, her fear mixing with awe. She had thought humans were weak, reckless, fragile. But now watching him, she saw something terrifying and beautiful. A will that did not break. A spirit that did not kneel. Still, the battle was far from over. The hunter's ship roared, sending more drones, charging its weapons again. The girl clutched the seat, her voice trembling. "They won't stop, not until I am gone." The human fired again, his voice like iron. "Then we'll show them what happens when they chase a human." The cabin shook with every blast, every strike. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, but he did not waver. And through the chaos, she realized something. She was no longer running alone. For the first time, someone had chosen to stand with her no matter the cost, and that choice would soon decide the fate of them both. The family, a future built together. The hunter's ship loomed larger on the screen, its cannons glowing like suns ready to burn. Drones swarmed in every direction, red eyes scanning, engines screaming through the asteroid field. The human's ship was small, scarred, and outnumbered. Logic said there was no chance. But logic had never been humanity's weapon. Inside the cabin, alarms howled. Sparks flew from the ceiling as another blast scraped past the hull. The alien girl gripped the seat, her body shaking. Yet for the first time, her fear carried something else beneath it. Hope. Because the man beside her had not given up. The human's voice was steady, calm even as chaos surrounded them. We end this now. The girl's eyes widened. How? Their ship is too strong. It can destroy us with one strike. He adjusted the controls, eyes burning with focus. Then we make sure they never get the chance. The ship dove sharply, engines roaring. Asteroids rushed past so close their edges burned against the shields. Drones followed, crashing into rocks one after another as they tried to match his speed. He twisted through the debris, every move daring, every second pushing. The limits. The girl gasped as the hunter's ship fired again. A beam of blue light tore across space, grazing their wing. The ship shook violently, alarms blaring. She screamed, clutching her chest. But the human did not flinch. He steered straight toward the largest asteroid in the field, a massive rock, splitting slowly under gravitational strain. They'll think we're trapped, he muttered. The hunter's vessel, massive and armed, moved in close. Its captain wanted to end this quickly. The giant cannons glowed brighter, ready to unleash the final strike. The girl's voice cracked with fear. If they fire, we'll be dust. Not if we strike first. The human slammed a sequence on the console. Hidden panels opened along the ship's belly, revealing something she had not seen before. Torpedoes. Old, patched but deadly. He locked them onto the asteroid's core, not the enemy. The girl's eyes widened in shock. You're not aiming at them? No. He said, voice low, almost a whisper. I'm aiming at the one thing even hunters can't fight, space itself. The torpedoes launched, streaking through the void. They slammed into the asteroid center. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the rock exploded. The shockwave tore through the field. Fragments spun like knives, smashing into drones, ripping holes in the hunter's ship. The explosion lit the darkness brighter than any star. The girl shielded her eyes, heart pounding. When the light faded, the hunter's vessel was broken. Its hull cracked, engines dead, weapons silenced. It drifted, crippled, no longer a predator, but prey. Silence filled the cabin. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the girl turned, her voice trembling. You destroyed them, with nothing but this ship. The human leaned back, breathing heavy, sweat dripping down his face. His voice was steady, though his body shook from exhaustion. No, we destroyed them. Together. Her eyes widened. Together. For the first time, the weight of chains lifted from her soul. She was no longer just the girl sold for 3 credits. She was no longer the hunted slave. She was someone who had fought, someone who had survived. And she was not alone. But the silence did not last. Across the galaxy, others would hear of this. More hunters would come. Governments would panic. Empires would fear. The last survivor of a destroyed people now traveled with a human who refused to bow. The girl knew this was only the beginning. Tears filled her eyes, not of fear this time, but of something she had not felt in years. Freedom. She whispered, "Why risk everything? Why me?" The human looked at her, his eyes unshakable. "Because no one deserves chains, because I couldn't walk away, and because—" He paused, his voice softer. "You are family now." The word struck her deeper than any blade. Family. Something she had thought lost forever. Her lips trembled. "Family," she repeated, tasting the word as if it were sacred. The ship floated in silence, drifting away from the wreckage. The stars stretched wide, endless and bright. And for the first time, she didn't see them as cold. She saw them as a path forward. Days turned into weeks. Together they repaired the ship, shared food, shared stories. She learned more human words, laughed for the first time, and began to smile without fear. He taught her how to fly, how to fight, how to survive. She taught him her people's songs, old words that carried beauty even in sorrow. Others joined them in time, outcasts, survivors, broken souls from across the stars. What began with 3 credits grew into something greater, a home built not by blood but by choice. And so, rumors spread through the galaxy, not of a hunted girl, not of a lonely human, but of something more powerful than fleets or empires. A family. To enemies it was a warning. To the broken, it was hope. Because one act of kindness, one refusal to bow, had changed everything. And in the heart of the stars, where once there had been only chains and silence, there was now a bond strong, enough to shake the galaxy itself, a bond called family.